Two roads diverged in a wood. I took the one less traveled by, and that, my friend, has made all the difference. All the difference. Robert Frost's immortal lines are an apt testament to Rakesh's own life. Rakesh was ever ready to make his own path, ever ready to march to his own convictions. Hello everyone, I'm Ramesh Damani, welcoming you back to part 2 of our tribute, Remembering Rakesh, on Wizards of the Street. In this episode, continuing with us are Bhaskar Bhat, Director Tata Sons, Utpal Sheth, CEO of Rare Enterprises, Amit Goela, partner at Rare, and joining us for his take, Berjis Desai, former managing partner, J. Sagar Associates. Gentlemen, welcome again to another episode. Berjis, you just joined us. Let me start with you. Do you remember your first meeting with Rakesh?
Yes, I do.
Talk to us about it.
Sometime in the mid-90s, there was a company called Praj, of which we all heard of, in which one of the substantial shareholders wanted to divest his equity. And that was the occasion on which I met him first time. And he said that it is overvalued, the price which the shareholder was asking for. And I said, okay, look, this is a company which is on a rock-solid foundation, and I can vouch for its integrity and the commitment of the vision of the promoters. So he says, Babaji, you don't give me lessons on how to value stocks. And then within 15-20 minutes, he said, I'm going to go by what you say, much against my discretion, and I'm going to buy it. So he, today, if you take into account all the corporate actions which took place over the years, I think it was worth about, at 9 rupees he bought the stock.
Right. Another of his legendary investment. Yes. But just from what I understand, you didn't bond over that, you bonded over horse racing. You both bet on stocks called Sensex and Nifty, is that right?
That horse racing came much later, several years later. And it was, I very unwittingly had to get into horse breeding because of some distress sale made by a friend, although I knew very little about horses. And after about 5 or 6 years, Rakesh was introduced by some other friends to horse racing. And then he said that, why don't we own some good horses together? So we bought a horse which was named Sensex.
Sensex and Nifty, I hear.
So Nifty won several races, and Sensex didn't run at all. And there was another horse which was very cheap, and which went on to win against all odds the Hyderabad Derby. It was very appropriately called Mahateji.
Mahateji, right. That's the long shot that Rakesh always bets on. Berjis, you talked about Praj Industries, and I know you're part of several other deals with him. Rakesh had this unique ability to sniff out promoters.
Yes.
What was his smell test?
So I said, apart from all the usual due diligence and various other things, I think he had a very natural instinct. You know, I would like to compare it to rather sort of flippantly to trained pigs being made to pick up truffles from the ground. So he had really a nose for the promoter. He did make a few mistakes, particularly when he would go by reasons other than sort of rational decision making out of relationships, etc. But he was quick to admit them. But he had a very uncanny sense of knowing who's going to do what. And he had a very keen and a detailed eye. I have seen so many promoters very uncomfortably squirm when he reminded them what they had said at the time of investing.
Amit, one of the things that your boss always used to say was, invest first, investigate later. Was that true?
No, I don't think so, Ramesh, that was true. There are several examples which I can tell you. So, while this was his favorite line, I think the thinking behind that was way beyond and deep. See, as I told you, he was working 24/7. Okay, he was always looking at opportunities. He was evaluating sectors. He might be there or he might not be there in that sector. But it did not mean that he was not thinking about it. So what that meant was when an opportunity came, he was always well prepared that he could take the decision very quickly. For example, if you take Akasa, in Akasa, he was always bullish on airlines. He had invested in Indigo, he had invested in SpiceJet, but somehow nothing worked out. And then when this opportunity came, the sheer brain power, horsepower which he brought to the table, he could evaluate it very quickly and he closed it in 48 hours. So it was not...
The entire deal in 48 hours.
Yeah, so you might say it is invest first and investigate later, but that's not the case, sir.
He had done his homework prior and kept doing his homework out there.
Yeah.
Good enough. Amit, Bhaskar made a good point about Akasa Airlines. You had Tata SIA Airlines. Was there rivalry or did you tell him anything about airline business?
I think the Akasa story, in a way, reflects Rakesh's belief in India, okay? There's no doubt, that Indians are going to want a better way of traveling. And there is no other country, by 2030, India will be the third biggest aviation market in the world. And it's just going to go. 500 million people, 540 million is the number of people who are going to fly from the current high pre-COVID 140 million. It's going to.
So almost 1 in 3 Indians.
Yeah, it's just the number of people who are going to fly. So there's no question. Now, how to skin that cat is left to the management and to the investor.
Utpal, he was wide known for his circle of friends. He was the life of the party. But yet, some friends were closer than the rest. Who were part of his kitchen cabinet?
I think, of course, Radhakishan ji,
R.K.
yourself,
Damani, of course, yes.
I think Kalpraj, Amal, Madhu.
They were very close to him in the last few years.
Very close, yes.
Correct. Amit, let me come back to you. I find it fascinating that a boss, a man of such fortitude, ability to look around corners, to grasp the unknown, was so casual about his health. Why?
Ramesh, one word I can say for that, hubris.
Really?
It was just hubris. See what had happened, Ramesh, he had got everything which he wanted right from the time he started his life in the stock market. He came to the markets against all odds, he became successful. He started off talking about becoming a billionaire when the word even millionaire was not used. And he became a billionaire. He wanted a large and happy family, though late he got that also. He wanted respect, he wanted to be at a particular level, he got that. So I think he always believed that he'll be able to dodge this bullet, but...
So he just felt that the sheer
his
adrenaline
confidence,
would pass him through.
Yeah, that he would be able to see this through also.
But as you remarkably pointed out, Amit, that despite his obvious trouble for the last 2-3 years, he never complained.
I will tell you one episode, I'll never forget that in my life. He was finally eating salt-free food, and one day he called me to the hospital and he said, have food with me. I was not even able to swallow that stuff. And he said, Khana, maja to aa raha hai, kya problem hai? I said, Bhaiya, are you serious? He said, Dekh, jo karna padta hai, don't complain. Can you imagine that man?
Yeah, we had the feet on this world, but unfortunately he was not able to walk for the last few months of his life. Everything you ever wanted is on the other side of fear. As we go into a break, let's look at some of the tweets about Rakesh Jhunjhunwala. and welcome back to Wizards. Only those who will risk going too far can possibly find out how far they can go. Continuing our discussion of Rakesh's improbable journey through Dalal Street. Berjis, let me get back to you. Rakesh appointed you trustee, executive as well. Did he anticipate, did he had a foreboding about his passing away?
No, he was a very meticulous planner. His prime concern was always his family and his partners, like Utpal and Amit. And contrary to what people believed that he was very erratic, etc., when it came to his estate planning for the family and future, it was done in a very systematic way. The children's trusts were formed almost 7 or 8 years ago.
Really?
And they hold very substantial investments.
But these are forever investments?
No, these are private family trusts.
No, but the investments in those trust holding,
Yes.
are they to be held to,
Yes.
to maturity for the
Yes,
children?
these are long-term investments. And that is the philosophy which the investment committee which he has constituted, which also comprises Utpal and Amit. That is the philosophy which is being recommended, that these are long-term investments not to be disturbed easily unless some event requires divestment.
Amit, I know one time he was practically giddy at the prospect of meeting the Prime Minister when Modi ji called him. What was that like for him?
Oh, that was the high point of his life, Ramesh. That was a trip he was really happy to make. Utpal was there, and I was also there for some bit. We didn't see the Prime Minister, but we were with him all the time. And he was genuinely happy. I think about the last 5-7 years when Utpal, am I right? He was happy. That trip was a trip which he felt good about. He felt he was being respected. He felt his views were being taken into consideration. And he was happy on that trip. So that was the high point of his life.
It was the first time that I remember in 30 years that someone from Dalal Street was honored in New Delhi.
Yeah, that was, if I may use the word, that was the crowning of Rakesh ji.
I couldn't disagree with you. That was the crowning of Rakesh. But Utpal, talking about the Prime Minister's visit, I know Rakesh made a presentation to the PM, and I'm sure you helped him with it. What did he tell the PM? What did he want to tell the Prime Minister?
Rakesh ji used to make these presentations, and the theme was always consistent. You know, it's not right for me to say what was in the presentation to the PM, but in general, all his presentations had his strong belief in India, had his strong conviction about how India will prosper and Indians will prosper, and what a virtuous cycle that is going to be.
His maxim that he has held for the last 30 years is be bullish on India. And that framed so many parts of his life, right? How he invested, how he viewed life, the optimism in him. Correct?
True. If I may use one phrase of his, he would say the greatest risk of investing in India is not investing in India.
Not investing in India, correct, absolutely. Amit, I'm sorry, Utpal, briefly, if someone were to ask you his investment philosophy, share that. What are the main tenets of that according to you? Okay. And take me through a transaction that happened in the last few years of his life that you were particularly in awe of or you really enjoyed.
Okay. Rakesh ji was a unique combination of a deep value investor who was also a growth investor and a terminal value focused investor. I have not seen any other investor who combined all three.
Marries those two. That was Jakes was saying in the earlier episode, yes.
Yes. He had a very simple investment philosophy. He would look for the size of the opportunity, the competitive edge that the company had, the quality of the management team, the scalability and operating leverage, and lastly, the divergence between price and value. But he could filter all of these variables in his mind.
And make it look easy, actually.
So quickly. He was so quick at decision making. It was amazing.
Bhaskar, you also knew the investment professional Rakesh, you also knew his family over time. If I would ask you, when his children were young, when children are young, and when they grow up, they ask you, what kind of person was my dad? What would you tell them?
Only one phrase I would use. Everybody knows him as an investor in companies. I felt he was an investor in human beings. The human quality of the man is not well. I know it from very, very personal, interactions. Therefore, even as Utpal was saying, he could, assess people very quickly. And in Titan, frankly, the first thing he said was, when I walked into his office and I saw the people, I felt like investing in this place, And at that time, watches was the bigger business, and he had great faith in the watch business. Forget about the jewelry business.
Jewelry business, yeah.
So it was the combination of what he smelt in the place, perhaps, and what he saw in the people, and some interaction with me. So that the intuitive investor is what I would say, but investment in people rather than only in the company.
Utpal, Amit, I'll ask both of you this final question. You are custodians of his legacy. You're both his partners. What is the most important learning that you both have, and what was the legacy that you think you need to promote? Amit, I'll start with you.
So we've discussed Rakesh ji for the last hour or so, and we all know what he has done. His legacy is like just status quo, maintain what he has done. We need to, his kids are young, his family is young, we need to make sure that they are taken care of, things are done. We don't mess around in any way. Keep it very straight, keep it
Steady
very
as she
simple,
goes.
and steady
Utpal.
as she goes, yeah.
What I've learned from him is your patience may be tested, but your conviction will be rewarded. And I think the belief that he had in Indian entrepreneurs and management team, I think is his greatest legacy.
And it's being vindicated, as you say.
And
Berjis, I'll give you the last word. You wrote a very nice obituary for him, which I read, and you said in that you're willing to bet, even in heaven, he's not still, he's creating a rumpus. Is that true?
I think he was possessed by some kind of an extraterrestrial energy, which was, I mean, how can anybody be so much of a flush of adrenaline 24/7? And despite such bouts of ill health, particularly in the last 2 or 3 years, where so much pain, so much discomfort, bound towards a wheelchair, but his mind, the optimism, the innate optimism, and
Always shown through.
and his love for India, that India is going to be having the greatest bull run in the next 10 years, which he said in the last 3 months. So I think...
you're right, Berjis. When you say that, he would have almost stars in his eyes.
Yes.
But let's move on. We've had a nice, serious discussion about the life and legacy of a friend of all of us and one of the great icons of the Indian capital markets. Let's do a rapid fire, okay? Let's see what answers you guys come out with, okay? So I'll start with Utpal. No-brainer. His favorite stock of all time.
Titan?
Yes, we knew that. So I won't even go around the table. But I'll start with you again. A maxim you remember him the most for?
Your first loss is your best loss.
Okay. Did you hear any of his maxims, Bhaskar?
Yes, I did. When something came in the papers about a raid on his, and I was still MD and I was very worried, I called him. He said, this was in Hindi, he said, look, I'm a diamond in a sack of coal. The image of this investing world.
Right.
I'm still a broker. I'll always be a broker. So
Right.
I'm happy this has happened because I will come out clean. So I am the diamond in that.
Fearless. Amit, what is your favorite maxim?
A phrase that I can't pronounce it fully, like...
Badare levanu, ghataye bechwanu.
that one,
Which
yeah.
means buy on strength, sell on weakness. Don't try and bargain hunt out there. Did you hear any of his maxims, Berjis?
Not really, but he always used to say, what prediction does Ganesh ji have for me?
Okay, good enough. His favorite Bollywood movie or song? Name one.
Meri Zora Jabi.
From the film Waqt with Balraj Sahni.
me.
You used to sing with him, I know that.
He said this was the national anthem of India at that time. That Amitabh Bachchan, his son, what is it called? Bunty or Bubbly. That song from Bunty or
Kajra
Kajra. Lovely. Amit, do you have any memories of film?
That's
song?
same.
We actually danced in your house to that song.
That was the last
Correct. Burgess,
famous video.
you shared horses, do you share a
So, no,
celluloid
after a
love?
few drinks, he always used to sing this song, Maine pi sharab, tune kya kiya, aadmi ka khoon.
Burgess, his best quality.
I think his quick-fire ability to apologize after one of his famous violent outbursts,
And his worst quality.
not looking after his health.
Amit,
Compassion, best, and worst was like he didn't look after himself.
Bhaskar.
his human quality of understanding and instinct, and his worst quality, same, not looking after
Hell,
himself.
that's almost unanimous. I guess you also agree with the worst. What would you say his best quality is, Utpal?
I think judging people and sustaining relationships.
Can you give me a global investor, Utpal, or a promoter whom he admired?
He admired George Soros tremendously, and I think the marquee trade of $1 billion betting against the pound sterling, there were so many lessons from that he learned and talked about. One quote I would use here is, it doesn't matter how many times you are right and how many times you are wrong.
How much money you make when you're right? Absolutely. Bhaskar, what about you? Any investor or promoter that he told you he admired?
Quite unequivocally a big admirer of the Tata Group. And whether it was Mr. Ratan Tata or current chairman Chandra, he would have
Unabashed admirer.
admirer, and it was always not for the investment return, but for the values of the group, and he would repeatedly talk about it.
I don't know about investor promoter, but a politician I know he deeply admires was Winston Churchill.
Yeah.
Amit, anyone comes
So
to mind?
other than George Soros, it's Mark Faber.
He's of course a very colorful character. Visited him in Bombay.
yeah, so-
Burgess, did he tell you anyone?
I think he just couldn't see beyond Tatas.
Okay, good enough. Last question, gentlemen. First to you, Burgess. Other than the birth of his children, when did you see him happiest? 25th wedding anniversary, 50th birthday in Mauritius, or when Titan became a 100-bagger?
I think it was to the extent I remember it was in Mauritius when he celebrated his birthday.
50th?
And
100%.
Not when Titan became a 100-bagger?
Oh, Mauritius is next to that swimming pool.
He was in a different mood.
You know, the difference is he was happy when others were happy. Whereas we are happy when we are happy.
And making others happy made him happy.
100%.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. That was a wonderful rapid fire. To conclude our special tribute, remembering Rakesh, allow me to share a poem by Henry Van Dyke entitled Katrina Sundial to honor his memory. Time is too slow for those who wait, too swift for those who fear, too long for those who grieve, too short for those who rejoice. But for those who love, time is eternity. Memories of him will linger with us for an eternity. Farewell, Khuda Hafiz and Alvida to my dear friend Rakesh. Goodbye and see you all next week on another episode of Wizards. There is a wonderful line in the musical The Wizard of Oz when the wizard tells the Tin Man, "A heart is not judged by how much you love, but by how much you are loved by others." The outpouring of love and concern that India saw on August 14th, 2022, the day Rakesh Jhunjhunwala passed away, is a testament to how beloved and idealized he had become as an icon in Indian capital markets. The story of his life became the history of modern Dalal Street. Hello everyone, I'm Ramesh Damani, your host of this very special edition of Wizards, which we are calling Remembering Rakesh. Today is a bittersweet moment for me. Rakesh was my very first guest on Wizards when we started the series in 2005. Today, we're gathered to pay him a final tribute. With me to discuss his life, legacy, and learnings are some of the people who were closest to him. But first, a throwback to his first appearance on Wizards.
The first quality I need as an investor is to be an optimist. I remember what Peter Lynch says, that wars have come and terror has come and natural disasters have come, but company profits have gone up. So you have to be the eternal optimist if you want to invest in stock.
Joining me today are Bhaskar Bhat, Director of Tata Sons, Utpal Sheth, CEO of Rare Enterprises, Amit Goela, Partner Rare Enterprises, and N. Jayakumar, Managing Director, Prime Securities. Bhaskar, let me start with you. Do you remember where and when you met Rakesh for the first time?
Quite clearly, I don't remember the date though. It was 2001, around I think November or December. He'd come to the office and a common friend had asked for a meeting with me. I had not yet taken over as managing director, and it was late in the evening, and frankly, to be really honest, I thought it was a waste of time meeting people who were from outside the ecosystem of the company, because I had, more other things to do with sales reviews or business reviews and so on.
No time for him.
Well, I don't know.
Manner of
Frankly, it was a common friend who said, 5 baje aayenge. I said, yeah, le aao yaar. I mean, courtesy. And that evening, I remember clearly. But he remembered more clearly than I did. He remembered many words, many sentences, many actions of mine, which he kept repeating much later, which I didn't remember.
So you really went from being indifferent to meeting him to being dazzled in the course of that one meeting?
More than everything else that he gave, to me, the time he gave was the most valuable. Therefore, whether time on the phone, whether time to meet physically. So every meeting, to me, in a way, the uninitiated in this world of, investing, as in, running a company and creating value for a company is very far, at least at that time, from the language, the approach, the thesis that investors were using, and particularly with Rakesh, it was a very different thesis. So every time, I'll hear him listen, argue, fight, but finally end up learning something new.
Utpal, what motivated your boss?
Rakesh, I think, was an eclectic investor. He was open-minded, had very strong opinions. And what motivated him was his own aspiration for himself. It was not something outside of him.
Internally driven.
He was deeply internally driven. He was a 24/7 person.
Is it true he never looked at you when you came to the market during business hours because you were looking at the screen?
No, he would look at both. More at the screen maybe, but he would still look at both. But I think what drove him was his intense belief in India, his intense belief in himself, and his intense belief in the power of the equity markets to create value and to create wealth.
Utpal, they also say that markets give you exactly what you want in life. It's your Rorschach test almost. What did he really want from his life, Rakesh?
Rakesh wanted, above everything else, for his beliefs and his convictions to be proven right, to be vindicated. And he, of course, more than achieved that. But I would say that Rakesh felt that he would, it was not the quantum of wealth that he would make, but if India became the India that he had in his dreams, then that would have made
That
him
was
the
vindication.
happiest.
Amit, who were Rakesh's earliest friends in the market?
So, hi Ramesh. So, from what I know, there was a trio at that point of time. There was Mr. Rakesh Damani, there was a gentleman, Mr. Rajiv Shah, who unfortunately passed away, Rakesh, and there was one more gentleman, Nimesh Shah. They all came to the markets at the same time.
Around 85.
Around 85, different age, different backgrounds, but they all came to the market with a single objective, and they became very close friends. And that friendship endured till...
What binded them together, Amit?
I think 3-4 things binded them together. One was their core belief in India. I think they were light years ahead of everybody. They figured out that India is on a different growth trajectory. Second, I believe they all believed that even though Bombay Stock Exchange at that point of time had a little bit of an unsavory reputation, it was a cabal of people or a group of people who controlled it, they all believed that over a period of time, capital markets will allocate capital efficiently to good companies, and they can make wealth over there over a long period of time. Which they did.
Legitimately.
Legitimately and ethically.
Jakes, quantify Rakesh's financial genius for me. Tell me his track record.
He famously said, which is also a statement of fact, that he came in with 5,000 rupees. And the last estimated wealth is, say, $5 billion, which is 40,000 crores. Now, 5,000 rupees in 37 years going to 40,000 crores is a mere 64% compounding. Mere.
Yes,
And
you
yet-
drop it onto the floor when you hear that.
And yet, some people will say, but Warren Buffett, dollar terms. We said, hey, wait a minute. 5,000 rupees in 1985 was $500. $5 billion
became $5 billion.
today, $500 to $5 billion is a jaw-dropping 54%, which dwarfs Warren Buffett by only 2.5. It's a 2.5x over Warren Buffett for a person who started with literally 5,000 rupees, no grandfathering, came into an imperfect market, made it, the way he did, and for a person who created capital by trading.
He's the only one in the Forbes 400 who made it through
There's nobody
investing.
else in the top 400 who's made it only through equity markets. It's a staggering. Others may have had listed companies where they got money from the outside.
Right.
He created his capital through trading, paid full taxes, was the highest taxpayer virtually amongst the ilk that we talk about through this period of 37 years, and gave a return to himself and his only investor, Rekha.
As he always famously said. This is time for a break. Let's look at the snapshot for the big bull's life. And welcome back to a special episode of Wizards of the Street, Remembering Rakesh. Bhaskar, let me ask you again. Is it fair to say that his understanding of Titan was even ahead of management's or the promoters when he first invested in Titan?
I don't know about ahead or behind. Management was clearly, when I was the managing director, very, very focused on executing to a strategy which we had chosen ourselves. But like Rakesh believed in India, our belief in India came from our understanding of consumers, because we were deeply in that. And therefore, we were investing in what we knew best. I think Rakesh's larger belief in the larger picture of India that was emerging, perhaps, could be, aligned to what you're saying. But I think what he helped management do was every time, and I know, Utpal was there 2 times, I think, there was a visit to Titan. And the difference between, if you were to call management, board, and so on, and him was, this team would come, do a 2-day deep dive, and inspire the management. That rarely happens. I would always find these interactions, as if two sides of the table, quizzing you on what you did wrong and what,
This was a two-way street for you.
this was for us like the management, the youngsters in the team would say, we've not heard a guy say this, the belief in the company, not just in India, and saying, look, I think you guys can go here. And that, when somebody talks, like him talks like that to the management, then you don't need ESOPs and all, to make people
That's inspiring.
perform. Very,
Bhaskar, did it surprise you that Rakesh has held this huge stake in Titan for over 20 years? I mean, did you expect that?
I frankly didn't. In fact, once he did tell me, I think it was closer to when I was going to retire. And I think everybody knew about our relationship, our friendship and so on. So he once told me, look, Bhaskar, I hope, I think I'll exit when my stake hits $1 billion.
Right.
I said, look, Rakesh, on this part, there's an understanding. I will never tell you when, what, sell, buy. It's just not, we know each other for some other reasons. And I think we hit that number much earlier than I retired. I think he was thinking that it'll be a little after I retired.
In fact, you retired when the stock price was the highest it had ever achieved. I remember that day. But Utpal, let me ask you, Bhaskar talking about billions of dollars, Rakesh made over $5 billion. That's also probably understating it. But was making money his way of keeping score? Or was it just trying to be an income tax commissioner's son, trying to escape his middle class roots? What was it?
Rakeshji was a huge believer in capitalism, and he felt equity markets were the temple of capitalism. And he believed that eventually capital allocation helps you to create wealth. He was doing what he believed in. And that was all. He was always focused on opportunities.
Money was an outcome of that.
Money was an outcome. It was, and he believed that the means are as important as the end. So therefore, making money was just an outcome. It was not the process.
Understood. And you've often said that, Amit, that Rakesh wanted you to do it legitimately. But you also once told me, Amit, that you don't teach Sachin Tendulkar how to bat. Yeah. But even Sachin retired. Did his illness and ill health in the last few years, did that diminish his appetite for equities?
No, there was nothing called quit in Rakeshji's vocabulary, mind, thought process. There was no quit over there. In fact, Ramesh, in the last couple of years when he was going through a difficult time, the mood was not very good because of COVID. I think he made some of the most aggressive bets of his life. I think agility-wise, ask Utpal also. I think he was working at a performance level which I had not seen in the last 5-7 years. Maybe in the full bull market, first one, but this time it was just unbelievable what he was doing. And some of the trades, some of the investments which he put out, they multiplied several times.
He never lost his appetite. Jakes, they say that he's made billions, he never lost his appetite. What are some of the techniques that you saw him use to become a successful investor?
I think it's said that it's not important how often you're right, but how much you are in when you're right. I think nobody epitomized that better than Rakesh. In fact, I used to be, I would say, almost an open-mouthed, shameless admirer of the way that he could do it, because the ability to carry risk through leverage, through futures trade, to pyramid and do what his conviction told him. And every trade was a new trade, forgetting the fact that you already had an exposure. I'm sure that in his mind, exposures being calculated. He had that little pocketbook where he would, in the middle of the night, tell you exactly what he was doing. But I think the ability to leverage, that is the most important thing, and double up. That is one particular technique. The other which I felt was, many moons ago, a gentleman called Ramesh Damani, R.K. Damani.
Ouch, you're going to remind me.
R.K. Damani and Rakesh, we met when Pantaloons, at that time it was the Future Group, was just been called Pantaloons, had a market cap of 20 crores. And there was 25% on offer at par. And the three gentlemen in question spoke to Kishore Biyani for an hour and a half and passed the opportunity. Never mind, I thought, these things happen. So as a banker, 6 months later, we placed it out, etc. Stock went up to about 100 over a year. Rakesh identified an opportunity because certainty had given place to uncertainty at that time. I remember him coming in at 100 and he rode the wave up to an average of 1800 rupees. And I think that the fact that something has happened, is in maths, they call it a no memory property. He just shut out the past and said, the opportunity is now. So the ability to get caught up in your own beliefs, which people have, you know, which makes you say, but I looked at the stock at price X. It doesn't matter if you did. What did you do?
Jakes, as you said, but just to set the record straight, 1 hour, of course, twaddled his thumbs, the other hour built a retail empire, and the third hour actually invested in the stock. So there was some sort of happy ending to it. But let me ask you, you wore a hat as an investor and speculator, Jakes. Okay? That's enormously difficult to do, isn't it?
Enormously difficult when put together. I've actually had situations where he would be aggressively short in the futures while holding stock. And he would wear the two as seamlessly. It was almost as if you didn't understand biology, you had a left brain and a right brain that worked in parallel without a problem. Nobody's been able to get that dichotomy right, but I think he did it. And that's what made him hold on to stocks while using the market mechanisms to insulate against a potential fall. And that's what I mean. I think he was a bigger trading genius that has been made out. And he was a bigger investor that has been made out because you put the two together.
It's almost impossible.
It's almost impossible to do it.
I agree with you, as having tried both of them and failed miserably at them. But Amit, let me turn to you. A lot has been said about Rakesh the investor. I want you to give me a few points about Rakesh the man.
Thanks, Ramesh, for asking me that question. I think not much has been said about that. First thing, right off the bat, I think Rakesh was the most fearless man I've ever come across. He knew no fear. He did not know the meaning of the word fear. Whoever he was meeting, right from the Prime Minister down to a company promoter or anybody, he was completely fearless. That was the biggest thing about him, I feel. Second was his transparency. What you saw is what you got. There was no difference between what he was thinking and what he was saying.
Open book.
He was a completely transparent open book, which was as open as could be. There was nothing private or public with him. What he spoke in private, maybe he spoke more loudly in public.
Correct.
Rather than trying to be talking in whispers or hushing it up here. So these were the two things. Third was, I think, one thing which I saw of Rakesh towards his ending, towards the end, was his stoicism. You see, he asked for no quarters, he gave no quarters. Towards the last year or so, things were getting hard for him. One by one, a lot of things which he liked he had to give up by force. Not that he wanted to give up, he didn't have a choice. And he never ever complained. He never blamed anybody for it. He never asked for any sympathy. I think that was just unbelievable.
But Amit, you also told me that you really were touched by his compassion.
Extraordinary. So, fearless, and then this compassion which is there. You know, Ramesh, you won't believe it. During COVID, my wife lost her dad. And she had a tremendous back injury. She was not being able to move. And 2-3 months later, when things cleared up a little bit, I went to his house and told him, wish we could go to Bilaspur. And lo and behold, he organized a charter flight.
Charter flight.
With a doctor.
With a doctor.
He didn't even ask me about it. How can this can come only if the man is compassion beyond normal.
With that, we've come to an end to the first part of our eulogy for the big bull. Remembering Rakesh, life and times from some of his contemporaries.
I have very fond memories of Rakesh from my school and college days. Rakesh had passion and was always very ebullient. A great believer in stock India, believed it was undervalued, and we can see the transformation of the Indian capital markets in front of our eyes. An amazingly sharp instinct and deep incisive ability to look through numbers and see the opportunity. Rakesh, we are proud of you, and I miss you.
He was someone who touched my heart in terms of actually giving me that realization that the path that I was on towards the path of structuring the company was the correct one. His endorsement, his encouragement, his guidance in that meeting not only gave me courage and conviction, but also gave huge amount of positivity and conviction to my entire team who were present with him.
He was an eternal optimist, especially during the difficult periods of GST implementation, demonetization, and COVID. He was constantly there, counseling us how we could use every crisis as an opportunity and ensured that we emerge stronger after all these crises.
Everyone at Akasa will be eternally grateful to the late Mr. Rakesh Jhunjhunwala. Rakesh was an early believer in Akasa's vision and plan. Rakesh was passionate about all things Indian. Rakesh was extremely passionate about Akasa's customer experience, but he was equally passionate about the employees' health and well-being.
To conclude, I would like to share a poem by Ellen Brenneman in which I found comfort during those dark days of August. Think of him, she says, as living in the hearts of those he touched. For nothing loved is ever lost, and he was loved so much. Thanks for the memories, my friend. In the next episode of Wizards, we will continue our chat about the life, legacy, and learnings of Rakesh Jhunjhunwala. We will be saying farewell to Jay Kumar, who has other commitments, but we will be joined by Berjis Desai, executor and trustee of his will, and former managing partner, J. Sagar and Associates. Thank you, and do keep watching Wizards.